everyone. It's Ryan Fowler here with my good friend Tim Costello, Inner Game Group, every Saturday. And last week we looked at Coherence Therapy, which is one of a new breed of therapies coming out that instead of you just talking about your trauma and then slowly over time getting partially better and that's about it, the new wave of therapies are coming out. They're finally using the neuroscience. It's been around for 25 years. Believe it or not, it says you can instantly rewire your brain, get traumas out, get subconscious beliefs out that don't serve you, get them out, put optimal ones in. It's what we do. We do it with hypnosis. There is another therapy here that does the same thing, and we dove into it last week. We're going to keep diving into it. Coherence therapy. It's along with internal family systems, EMDR. These are therapies that actually do rewire your brain and fix a trauma. You don't just talk about it or learn to manage it. So we're going to go into more of the deep theory today and talk about the neuroscience that underpins it all. And it'll be a good show. So before we get into that, though, Tim, welcome to the show. Introduce yourself.
Thanks, Ryan. Hi, everybody. I am Tim. And this is a little different for us as a recorded show. The
live was terrible. So
what's that?
I said the live, was having problems.
But anyway, that's probably a YouTube or a StreamYard issue because we tested it. This is fantastic. But anyway, I'm Tim Costello with Tim Costello Hypnosis. I do what Ryan does. And one of the things I want to bring up is I was watching a Sage Steele podcast. And this podcast had Dr. Drew Pinsky on it. And he was talking about trauma, addiction, so on and so forth. And he even mentioned that all of the theories and practices that they have and therapies, that it takes years to overcome addiction. And we are finding that that's probably not 100% the truth now, because our method takes the things that have been around, like Ryan said, for 25 years, and Ryan has refined those down to a well-sharpened knife. And we are able to instantly and rapidly and immediately rewire the brain for success of the client. We don't know what that success is going to be, but we've had anecdotal references in the past where people have stopped doing activities that weren't good for them because their subconscious didn't need it anymore. So this is going to be a really good topic today, and take it away, Ryan.
All right. Thanks, Tim. And in regards to addiction, people who are the real hardcore addicts, there's always trauma. There's painful trauma, painful emotions that they're trying to cover up. That's why they engage in the addiction. It makes them feel better, whereas otherwise they typically chronically feel bad. And their addiction helps them manage that. Now, I'll say getting rid of the underlying trauma is a huge, huge, huge step in helping with addiction. There are other things you need to do because you still have, I guess you could say, a very, very strong bad habit if you've engaged in addiction for years, even if the underlying trauma is gone. So there is more to do for that. And again, we're not psychologists or mental health experts. We are hypnotherapists. So, if you guys struggle with that, you definitely want to get with a specialist. But what we will say is you can get rid of that underlying trauma, which is the root cause of why people need to keep drinking or doing whatever type of drugs. I've known people who've been stoned 24/7 on weed for years, and they're covering up pain. I know people who stopped. They were stoned for years and they don't smoke at all now or take other drugs. And they said, they were managing trauma. So coherence therapy, we're going to dive more into it today. These therapies are so niche, with the exception of EMDR. They're so niche that most psychologists with doctorates don't know about them. You look at Healthy Gamer GG. He's a psychiatrist on YouTube. I think 2-3 million subscribers at this point. You could tell he has no idea. He has no idea about that these therapies even exist. Dr. Drew, I don't think fully understands how they work. And
correct.
and that's apparent from his interviews. So most doctors don't know this stuff exists, even though the neuroscience research at the university level it was done 25 years ago, actually in the 1990s and early 2000s. It was done. Dr. Michael Merzenich, and there was another gentleman. It was Andrew Huberman, and I can't remember the other guy's name. He's out of Dallas. You remember that episode we had? I'd look it up. Just can't remember it off.
Yes.
But there's multiple neuroscientists that did peer-reviewed studies showing, yes, you can go in, you can rewire your brain in one sitting, you get rid of trauma, put in new beliefs. You can do it in one sitting. There might be several beliefs to fix. I usually get 3 to 4 per session, and typically 90-100% resolve, sometimes 60, 70, 80. It just depends on the person. And they might have a dozen traumas and I need to do 3 sessions to fix them all, or 4. But major ones, there's always going to be a lot of smaller ones too. But you can do this in this Bruce Ecker, who invented coherence therapy. We're going to watch an interview with him where he talks about the techniques that actually work and put this neuroscience into play, which are just emerging now. And it's what we do as well. So it'll be really good and interesting. Do you have anything to add before we dive in?
I think it's on the money, Ryan. And, I've not done more than 3 sessions with any one person. In fact, the 3rd session was pretty light in comparison to the first 2. But people generate over time a lot of hidden, trapped, harbored, whatever you want to say, rage, resentment, or anger at somebody or something as they're moving along, not even realizing that's triggering them.
Yeah.
So I did one session one time where we had about a dozen people that this person was incredibly angry at, and spent most of the session doing that, cleared 1 or 2 traumas past that, came in the second session, did 1 gestalt, just one person in the anger, and then did 3 traumas beyond that. So every person is very variable and very complex. No 2 people are the same, just like fingerprints. So it's very tailored to whatever that person needs. And I've even started sessions and discovered things during the session that we didn't talk about before that needed handled. So there's a bit of troubleshooting going on as you're going through the session to make sure you're on track to help this person.
Yeah, and there's I have sessions where it's a whole session resolving one issue.
Yes.
And then I've had sessions where I have literally resolved a dozen in one session. Yep. And it just, there's a wide variance between people. I will say 80% of the people that come to us after 2 sessions, all their major stuff is gone.
Correct.
And I would say 90%, if you do 3 sessions, it covers 90%. But I've had people before pre-book 3 sessions. Yep. And then after 2 sessions, they're like, I don't need the 3rd session. And that's very common. So I don't let them pre-book 3 anymore. There's usually 2 sessions worth of stuff we can get out of someone, even if they're just moderately struggling with some stuff. But oftentimes they say they don't need the 3rd. They may come back 3 years later, want a 3rd, and say, yeah, I've just been living life and I have some new challenges and it's dug up some new stuff. But it sounds like that's pretty typical for you too, Tim. After 2 sessions, most people are fixed, at least all the major stuff, and they're like, I don't need the 3rd one. It's like, all right, cool.
I've actually had
that's how effective it is.
Yeah, I've had one person come back a year later, and she said, I just want some more because life is going well, and I got this thing that's bothering me.
Yeah,
I want to get that cleared up too, so I can get even better.
Yeah, what we're doing is really a performance service. We're getting you unstuck and we're getting you to kick way more ass. And we did that for Tim's wife. She wanted all her life to start a business and tried over a dozen times, 20 times, always shut it down because of her insecurities. We fixed her. She now has a thriving business and keeps you busy as heck doing it. Yep. So really good stuff. So let's dive into this interview. And as it goes through it, this is, again, it's one of the therapies that uses just a lot of what we do, a lot of overlap. And so these new therapies are coming out. And so here is Bruce Ecker with Dr. Tori Olds, and we will watch and comment. So let's see. Uh-oh. Okay, here we go. And here we go.
Well, there's a particular client with whom I did this. I said, tell me, have you ever been in a situation where your mistake or misstep became apparent to somebody and they didn't react like that? This client learned that people will react like that because dad always did. Dad always just, an arithmetic error when he was little, or spilled some milk, and dad blows up into rage. Like, how can you be so stupid? Even in front of visiting family members or whatever. And this was frequent. So I asked him, have you ever made a mistake in front of somebody? And they didn't respond like you expect based on dad. He had generalized that experience to all people. And now that the schema is conscious, exceptions, past opposite experiences came to mind readily. Like, well, I never thought of it this way, but yeah. And he named 4 or 5 instances from when he was young into up to last week with a coworker.
Hang on one second there, Ryan.
Yeah.
When he says schema, I am interpreting that as a subconscious program or routine.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I know what schema is. So there's two types of core beliefs, subconscious core beliefs. First is core identity beliefs. That is beliefs about who we are, our ability, our inherent value, and related to that. Second is schema, which is core beliefs about others and the world around us. And so when he says schema, that's what he's referring to. So if I make a mistake, my dad will yell at me, or people will yell at me because people get angry when I make mistakes. That would be schema. Core identity belief would be when they yell at me, it means I'm not good enough. That's a belief about you, and that's core identity. Together, they comprise what are called core subconscious beliefs, and they are the lens through which we look at our life and interpret the world. It's subconscious. It's automatic. It happens whether you realize it or not. It happens all the time. Even if you don't want it to happen, whatever your core beliefs are going to be that lens through which you look at life. And so when people come to us, they say, I struggle with procrastination. I have social anxiety. I have, things happen and I freeze, or I go into a panic, or I get really sad, or I isolate, or I'm lonely, or, people can have addictions, etc., or just whatever's bothering them. Those are the symptoms. The thing underneath it all that's driving it all are your core beliefs. A lot of people don't even know what those are, which is why they're just going through life and they just know I don't feel good or I'm struggling. So when they come to me or Tim, the first thing we do is we start identifying what those core beliefs are. And he has a master's in psychology. He actually doesn't have a doctorate, but he invented this methodology, Coherence Therapy. That's what he's talking about. He's talking about first, we got to make you consciously aware of what's in your subconscious, what the core schema and core identity beliefs are.
So to clarify,
yeah,
core beliefs are what you believe about yourself.
Core identity.
Core identity are the core beliefs you believe about yourself. And then schema are the core beliefs that you believe how others are acting or supposed to act or have acted.
Others and the world in general.
Very good.
External.
Yeah.
So together,
anybody but you.
Together, they comprise all of your core beliefs.
Correct.
Yeah.
Very good.
Schema, that's what that is it others in the world around you. Here we go.
Yep.
That asked for the April figures and he sent the March figures. And oops, sorry, here's for the young into up to last week with a coworker who had asked for the April figures and he sent the March figures. And oops, sorry, here's the March figure. And the coworker was relaxed and friendly about it. So we had a list of about 4 or 5 of those since high school. And I said, so, okay, once he listed that for me, I said, look, let's go over, and here's where I create the juxtaposition experience for him. Let's go over what you've experienced of making mistakes in your life. And first I reviewed how it was with Dad and got him into the feeling of that, the horrible feeling of that. And here again is staying close to the stuff causing all the trouble, not getting away from it. The client has to be back in that stuff to create the juxtaposition both at once.
Back in that stuff means you literally take them to the point where they're feeling the same way they felt when their dad was yelling at them when they were a kid. You're going to arouse that emotion. In hypnosis, we oftentimes go back to that original memory. It's actually not necessary to go to the memory, but you absolutely need to connect to it. We do it because it helps, but you absolutely need to connect to that negative emotion of how it felt when Dad yelled at you, etc., or whatever else screwed you up. We'll keep going.
But I'm back into, yes, I expect anybody will react like that to me if I make a mistake. And then I said, and yet you're telling me that you yourself have experienced, and I reviewed every one of them. Your high school English teacher was relaxed and friendly when you went to her and said, you realize you wrote the term paper according to the wrong instructions. And then I reviewed each one, including the one last week with the coworker. And so you've seen that people don't respond like that. How is it to be in touch with the dad expectation and your own experience? That's so different. There's the juxtaposition experience. That, and hovering with that, staying with that for the rest of the session, even repeating it by empathetically reviewing it several times. That is what we finally noticed results in the full depotentiation of that underlying lifelong potent core belief or expectation. And, you know, the clients react to that juxtaposition in many different ways. Some burst out in a gleeful laughter.
We've had that happen.
Absolutely. Let's stop there for a second, Ryan.
Yeah.
So I want to clarify for everybody that what Bruce just mentioned was a number of teenage and adult experiences that triggered these people back to a schema or a schema identity of how the world should act based upon how their parents or adults in their life treated them. This happened with Carrie as well. Carrie's mom would yell at her for not doing things perfectly. Yeah. So later on in her early teen years in high school, there was a group of girls that would not include her in the friendship, and she thought they were judging her. There was a ballet teacher that everybody had to go to in the village because she was the ballet teacher par extraordinaire. And that person would also correct Carrie in her ballet things, right? So she was perceiving all of these things that may or may not have truly been happening to the schema developed in her childhood that her parents instilled in her. So whether or not that ballet teacher meant any criticism or not, it was her job to teach her students. But Carrie perceived that as a threat. And the girls that may or may not have included Carrie, they probably weren't excluding her for any real reason. She thought she just wasn't part of their gang. So she would perceive this this safe signal as a non-safe signal. So this is what Bruce is talking about. Yeah. So as you grow up, there are going to be interactions in the world that you have that your brain will recognize as a potential threat and then cause an emotional reaction. And that's
based on the things it learned as when you were a child.
Absolutely.
It learned things as a child, and you drew certain interpretations of the world as a child. And then now your brain is expecting everything to be like that as an adult.
Correct.
And it causes problems if you had a lot of trauma and abuse or It could even be stuff that seems pretty minor, but some minor thing happened, but it formed a belief in you that could plague you the rest of your life. You know, it's much more likely with severe trauma to form these, false core beliefs. But sometimes minor stuff does.
And the key for all your attempts out there in the world to cognitively overwhelm these subconscious beliefs, core identity, schema, etc., it's very difficult to do that in a short period of time because the subconscious is always going to win out when you're at a low point or when you dip off of your cognitive efforts to say, dang it, I am worth a lot and I can do anything I want. But then when you're quiet, your brain will come out and say, no, you're really not.
Yeah, and so you see people trying to practice law of attraction or affirmations or happy thoughts, positive thoughts.
Right.
And I'm a big proponent of positive self-talk. We do something a little more advanced than affirmations called evidence-based identity statements. And which is like affirmations, but there's actual evidence. You point out things you're doing well in life and say, I did this, that does mean I have value. And there's other CBT techniques such as reframing, etc. If you do it over and over and over again for a long time, it can partially, incrementally, somewhat rewire these false core beliefs. Some of the false core beliefs it never touches. For the most part, though, if you have false core beliefs and subconscious trauma, just thinking happy thoughts is not going to fix it.
Correct.
When you think happy thoughts, it temporarily, partially modifies what you're feeling. So if you have a feeling in you, a core belief, when I fail, it's proof that I'm a failure, that I'm a loser when I fail. So you have all this anxiety about anything you could fail at because your brain is like, well, if you fail, you're going to be, it's going to prove you're a failure and you're going to feel horrible. I want you to avoid that pain. And now anything you could fail at, it wants you to avoid. So your brain saying, I predict this will go wrong and you're going to fail. And so if you then do something and fail now, you're feeling horrible. You can have positive self-talk and it helps a little. It will make you feel a little bit better temporarily. But that's it. And that's normal therapy. They're they're just helping you manage this stuff. They're not fixing the trauma. It's like, okay, I feel somewhat better. I'm doing better than before. It's taken forever, to make any progress. It's taken a long time. And they cover this in our last video, the doctor and the therapist. There's a doctor we haven't seen yet interviewing him, Dr. Tori Olds. And they talk about, normal therapy sucks. It's incremental partial change. That's it. So these guys have nailed it. Now, his juxtaposition he's talking about here is the secret sauce that neuroscience has discovered. And the term neuroscience uses is predictive error mismatch memory reconsolidation. That's a nice sciencey term that they use. And a lot of these emerging therapies, EMDR has been around for a while. It has the most acceptance. It's still pretty niche. It's still only minority of therapists, like 10% use it, maybe less. And then I had a therapist do EMDR on me and he sucked at it. Even though he had a doctorate, he sucked at it because he took a 1 week long class. You need to take, I also had an EMDR guy, took almost a year of training. He was much better. So even these guys who do stuff like EMDR, a lot of them just take a 1 week course and they suck at it. So, this stuff is very niche, very emerging. A lot of very famous psychologists don't even know this stuff exists, but this is a secret sauce. So when he talks about juxtaposition, he's literally talking about connecting to your childhood trauma and the memories and what the memories made you feel and made you believe about yourself and others. That's the core beliefs that are there. And he says you literally connect to that and hold it there and then juxtapose that with all this evidence now that, I remember this time I did make a mistake here, 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 and here, and people forgave me, and people were not upset. This is the rewiring process. You have to emotionally connect and focus on the false belief, and then you literally show evidence to yourself. We actually have a broader and wider set of techniques to address this than he does. So, and what he's saying here is you show yourself the evidence. Well, now this old belief is not true because look, this happened in my life now, and it was fine. And when you have that emotionality and focus and show the new evidence, you are literally rewiring these old belief systems that have been there in your core for your entire life, screwing you up. You can literally rewire them and get them out of you. That's the process he's telling you now. What we do is we use these exact techniques plus some additional techniques in hypnosis where the neuroplasticity, the ability of your brain to change, is accelerated even further beyond what this guy is doing. But the core secret sauce to rewiring your brain is what he is talking about right now. We can accelerate it and make it even deeper and faster change with hypnosis, but we use these techniques plus some additional ones. Any comments, Tim?
No, it's very good. What he's saying is true, but it's stretched out and it's a little bit hit and miss. There's a lot of talking going on, a lot of troubleshooting going on to try to pick up on something. And then when he picks up on something, then they go to that evidence-based thing right there. So he's doing all the right things. He's just sort of scattered across the communication channel.
Well, I think he gets to people's trauma and then fixes it to his great credit.
Yes.
But by introducing hypnosis and some other things, we have a wider set of tools and we can concentrate and accelerate the results.
Yep.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I agree, Tim. Let's keep going.
Deep recognition that this horrible oppressive version.
I'll say one other thing: by going inward and focusing and connecting to the emotion tied to the old beliefs, whether he realizes it or not, you will go into a light trance doing that. So he's kind of doing like really light hypnosis, without actually doing hypnosis. Does that make sense at all, Tim?
Absolutely. Because, you can...
Hypnosis is focus.
So let me just tell you,
that's what it is.
Everybody has been hypnotized.
Yeah.
Even if you're sitting and watching TV and something on the TV reminds you of something and you go into a little bit of a distracted thought process, we call it, being distracted, and you start concentrating on that particular thing, you literally lose track of the television show and you are sitting in a trance thinking about that thing, because then people will shake their head and come back to reality, knocking themselves out of that trance. So everybody's been hypnotized at some point somehow.
Well, yeah, I would say you don't lose track of the show, but you lose track of everything else. You forget, you kind of forget you're watching a show because you're caught up in the emotions and the moment that is of the story.
Yeah, people have to go back and rewind it and rewatch it because they lost all the details.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. All right. We'll keep going. Here we go.
Reality isn't real, isn't the reality. That is so freeing, but there's a joyous laughter that some people go into. Other people, I've had clients go into a grimace. That's no less a marker of the change happening, but a grimace of distress because, for example, I'm thinking of one. Yeah, in fact, this same client, he came back and said, "Yeah, I'm not so afraid of making a mistake around people, but actually, this wasn't a walk in the park because if everybody isn't the same as Dad, I mean, if everybody is the same as Dad, then Dad's a normal guy. But if I'm seeing that everybody's not like that, then Dad looks real different, and it's not good. Yeah. Dad's a cruel guy. That was abuse." And I'm real agitated about seeing that. And we had to do several sessions of grief work and anger.
That's someone who loves their parent and doesn't want to, or it's painful to come to grips that their dad is not the dad they wanted.
Yeah, they just don't want to let go.
Yeah. And
Because
I recently did a session for someone who wants to love their mom, but their mom is very abusive and is still holding on to, well, maybe she can change. Maybe we can have this, mother-child relationship that I want and yearn for. And the client's coming to a realization that's never going to happen. And I say, how do you feel? And she says, it feels like I'm at a funeral for my mom.
there you go.
Saying goodbye to the dream of having a relationship that in reality she can't have. Yeah.
Because who wouldn't want that naturally?
And now he's talking about grief. And I've seen that. People grieving that, I don't have the loving parents that a very deep part of me yearns for.
And again,
you can get over that and move on. We can heal that too. But that's
and again,
part of
there is a reality of that was your reality growing up. So it seems sort of normal to you to live in that until you realize how abusive it was.
Yeah. You can actually, it starts with you becoming your own parent and giving yourself all the love you want as a child and didn't get. Yes. And then it extends to finding other people who become your new family, who are good people.
Looking for a new tribe.
Yeah, there you go. But it starts with you loving yourself and becoming the parent you always wanted. You become that parent for your inner child. We'll keep going.
Work in relation to dad, for him to finally arrive at fully allowing the knowing that other people are not like that. He's not in danger of that with people. And so his perfectionism and his social anxiety disappeared. But it took that, there was a, that kind of complication, that process was necessary to get all the way there. But anyway.
I'm glad you use that as an example, because it's easy to think coherence is finding the schema and dissolving the schema, but it's complexity. There's time for grief work and emotional processing and work.
Absolutely. It's with some clients it's necessary. Sometimes it is. Poof. It's amazing.
I want to point out, he said we had to spend several sessions of grief work. For us, it's common to do the entire thing in one session, to do the juxtaposition, resolving the trauma, and then a gestalt and resolving things with your dad. We could do it all in one session. I'm not saying all the time, but oftentimes, instead of dragging it out to several. But we do have longer sessions, a full session, 5-6 hours, maybe 4 hours, depending on how we do it. But we kind of do these mega sessions to just do it all at once as much as we can. And anything to add, or just keep going?
No, you're on the money, Ryan. You're right on the money there. It's just ours is more rapid and immediate. That is the key, because tomorrow you want to wake up to be a new person. We want to take an hour today and then wait another week for another hour, and then wait another week for another hour. 6-7 weeks go by, and you could have been a new person for 4.5 of those weeks.
Yeah. It's like, let's do it all in one day as much as we can. That's our approach, and
Absolutely.
It works. It's awesome.
On the money.
But there's often complications like that have to be skillfully navigated like that to get the full effect.
Yeah, when you were talking about the both and, is how much you weren't tipping the scale toward one or the other, which I think would be tempting to do for a therapist to say,
yes,
oh my gosh, you can see this is wrong, clearly wrong, because we have this other evidence, and can we just prefer this is the truth?
Yes.
And I
love that's the counteractive reflex slipping in.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. And again, we had to master that, and it took a while. But what you're emphasizing is so important, Tori, that you're just putting the client in front of both with zero indication of preference or which is the true version. We learn by seeing that this process exists in the client, in the brain. We learn to trust it. We learn to trust that the client's brain and mind will update reality through the juxtaposition. We don't need to it's this one, it's not this one. No, no need. And in fact, you interfere with the process when you do any of that.
Is that because it takes you up into your head where you rush?
Yes,
you know?
exactly. It takes you up into controlling the process and out of the fully experiential flow of that process.
That was the second thing I was really noticing as you were describing is it's non-counteractive for sure. And there's another piece of being non-interpretive. So from both, if we're going to fill out the picture a little bit there, it's different to access these knowings. It would have been easy, for instance, for a therapist to have such a history in mind and say, oh gosh, you go to shame, client, let me explain to you, because your father shamed you. So you probably expect others will as well. I mean, it wouldn't be hard for a therapist to map that out ahead, of where
That's right. That's right. That's another big temptation. And so many therapists are trained to do that.
Yeah, to make an interpretation.
Really? Yeah, that's perfectly valid therapy in many approaches. But the coherence, the symptom coherence principle guides the fully experiential eliciting of that underlying stuff with zero interpretation. And that's another rule we follow is to refrain from any interpreting or conceptual explaining in order to get there. Mm-hmm. So, sometimes I'll stop myself and have to kind of like get quiet and look for, how do I make this show up, not explain it. Yes. I think if I mention how I did it with that fellow, it'll help illuminate this important point. When he in the first session, when he described the pattern, which he started off, the starting point was, he came in to say, I want to get free of something that's been with me my whole life. He was in his mid-40s. When I'm around people, I lock up. I get tight and locked up. I don't find words. I don't flow. And people feel it, and it's awkward, and it embarrasses me, and it makes them not want to hang out with me. I can tell. And so I said, well, does it feel like anxiety when you're among people? And he oh, I guess so. Which meant he's not in touch with his affect either. He just that locked up somatic state. And so I said, okay, let's. Does it feel like that you're not safe? Does it feel like something's not safe? He said, well, yeah, I guess, that's true. Which also was new, but at least it was truth. That's how out of touch with himself he was.
Okay, just real quick. So what they're talking about here is what a lot of psychologists do is they'll talk to the client and then they'll say, okay, Mr. Client, here's why you struggle, and I'm diagnosing you with this, certain diagnosis, and here's what's in your subconscious. And now the client intellectually understands what's wrong with them. But they're not doing that. That's called interpretive. The psychologist is going to tell the person why they're screwed up after they do some analysis. That actually can interfere with being able to rewire someone's brain, because it is what's very important is that the person discovers what's in them so that they can connect to it, feel it, and focus on it. And if you just tell them, then they just have this intellectual understanding and they don't actually go down and connect. They have to go down and connect and feel what's there. And he mentions belief elicitation. We have a belief elicitation method for people to go down with our guidance, or they can do it on their own, but it's better with guidance if you're not trained in it. And they find out exactly what's down there, and then they feel it and they connect to it instead of, oh, okay, that's what's wrong with me. I intellectually understand that. Now we'll just move on. No, you're not going to rewire your brain that way. That's what he's talking about. Any comments, Tim?
Yeah. So I want to.
They have to experience the trauma in them as a precursor to fixing it. Don't just be told, they got to experience. Go ahead.
I want to go back so he calls this coherence therapy. And that threw me off a little bit, because coherence to me meant something a little bit different. But when they're using it, they're actually describing, for most people, this is not 100% of the people, but a large percentage of the people, your brain is not working in an incoherent manner. Your brain is working correctly. It's got software running in the brain, and it is receiving inputs from the outside world. No different than a computer receiving inputs from a mouse or a keyboard or something like that, right? It's going to receive these things. It's going to compare these incoming inputs to the software running in its brain. And we talked about that earlier, core identity and schema, which is how you think the world's going to act towards you. If there's a difference in that, it is incoherent to the brain that you would get a normal emotional output. You're going to get a output that's based upon a bad program.
Yeah.
So what they try to do is they're saying, look, there's nothing wrong with your brain, but let's go feel these things that aren't producing the correct emotional response. And like Ryan said, we do a little bit better identifying that and connecting to that and then changing that software. So now your brain is working as functional as it was before, A plus B equals D, etc. But now the software is good and it's coming out with the correct response. So when he says coherence therapy, the whole idea is to get to coherence, get the right program running, get the right input coming in, and then getting the correct emotional response that, as we say, helps that individual.
Yeah, very good, Tim. So I brought up the, I'll just read it out to you, the Merriam-Webster definition of coherence. It's systematic or logical connection or consistency. That's the first definition. The second is integration of diverse elements, relationships, or values. So how I interpret that applied here is we take your conscious mind, your subconscious mind, we get that clarity of where everything is, and we integrate it all together into something that makes sense and is congruent throughout. And a lot of people go through life and they're struggling and they don't have that clarity. They don't know why they struggle. They haven't integrated their consciousness and their subconscious. That's actually just step one. Step two is doing the rewiring.
Correct.
But you need that coherence in order to, have that awareness, have that understanding what's in your subconscious. Carl Jung back in the 1960s understood this with shadow work. You have to make your unconscious conscious, but then take it a step further and actually fix those subconscious parts, unconscious parts that are causing you struggle, and get that aligned with your conscious mind. Get it all coherent, all aligned and understandable, but also optimized and fixed. So we'll keep moving unless you have anything else.
Nope. Okay, keep on rolling.
Here we go.
And okay, not safe. Would you like to start to find out what is not safe among people? He said, well, yeah, I would. So I said, all right, let this sentence complete itself. I'm going to give you a half sentence. You say it yourself out loud without pre-thinking the ending and see what your mind pops up to end it with. Here's the half sentence. I better not just talk freely while I'm with these people, because if I did, these underlying core beliefs or expectations or schemas are far outside of awareness. But if you give them a half sentence that matches closely enough what they care about, they can't resist finishing the sentence. Yeah. And so he said the half sentence.
That's how you make the unconscious conscious. You can't connect to and figure out what's in your subconscious. This is
absolutely.
And we do a similar method of this belief elicitation that connects you to the beliefs in your subconscious. That's what he's doing.
And he hit the blank and he said, what's coming isn't words. I'm getting an image of my father just exploding with rage. Well, that really was the best finishing of the sentence. That's the truth of it. And we just stayed with that and unpacked and clarified that. And by the end of the first session, we got to that schema that we got the words. He was feeling it right away. As soon as that image of dad came, he was in it, but he didn't have metacognitive clarity of what is this I'm feeling with dad exploding with rage. And so we kind of clothed that invisible schema with words. And by the end of the first session, we got to the wording I shared earlier. If I make any mistake, people will react like dad, and I'm worthless, and everybody knows it, and I deserve the shaming that will come. Got to it that way. So you see, there was no interpreting at all. It was a completely experiential process of bringing it out of him so that I learn it from him. When we train therapists in this approach, that's what we emphasize. You learn it from the client. You have to make it show up experientially. The client reveals it and you learn it from the client and with the client. Yeah, very important point. No interpreting either.
Yeah.
Phenomenological. That's what I understand the word phenomenological to mean. We're finding it in the client as it lives and operates in the client without importing our own meanings. We also describe this as having an anthropologist's view as we do this initial discovery work, right? Because we have to know we don't know what's there in the client. It's a unique world of meaning that we have to learn. An anthropologist doesn't go into a village and tell them how to make sense of things, right? That's ridiculous. It's the opposite, and it's exactly the same in this process as well.
Okay, so this is actually the biggest shortcoming that most hypnotherapists have, is they don't spend the time getting a really high definition view of what's in your core.
Correct.
A lot of hypnotherapists go into hypnosis and say, let's go back to the earliest memory that made you feel this way. And they just expect your subconscious to go back and already know. Your subconscious doesn't always do that optimally without proper guidance and without spending the time beforehand to really focus on and actually connect to what's there. So that's a great contribution Bruce Ecker made, is to spend the extra time before going in and doing the rewiring, spend the extra time to really focus on and find out and get a really good, clear idea of what is in you that's messing you up that you need to change. It's the biggest shortcoming in not talking about every hypnotist on the face of this planet, but in general, hypnotists don't spend enough time here, and if they did, their sessions would be 2 to 5 times more effective, which is our experience.
So let me add to that, Ryan.
Do this. Go ahead.
You and I went to the same hypnosis instructor.
Yeah.
And he's very good. He gives you literally a full snap-on tools kit to work with your clients. However, most people don't know, most hypnotists that take that training don't understand how to apply those tools. It'd be no different than me showing up at a mechanic's garage with a fully loaded snap-on tool set and then let me work on cars.
Yeah, you got the tools.
That would not be a smart thing to do. I sort of know how cars work, but making money at it, I don't think so right now.
Yeah, so when we did our hypnotherapist training, they do give you a diagnostic tool, as it were. It's called parts therapy. And in my opinion, it is inadequate.
Yeah.
It's when it comes to really finding out what's in you that's messed up, it's too low resolution. It's too vague.
Correct.
Instead of getting the absolute belief that's down there and high definition, it's like, well, my emotional side feels this, and my Intellectual side feels this, but it doesn't really draw out in high definition what's at your core messing you up. So
I agree.
They do some sort of diagnostic, but it's just inadequate. And I honestly, you can replace parts therapy with a belief elicitation method like what Bruce Ecker uses or what we use, our dive to 5 process, and then do Gestalt to get your parts to reconcile. And that's way more effective than parts therapy. I don't even do parts therapy at all because these tools that we have, that Bruce Ecker has, belief elicitation, is superior.
I agree. I don't use parts therapy either, past training.
Yeah. And getting this part down and then doing a session, getting that clarity and connection to your internal world, getting the client to do that, and then doing a session, that literally makes a session at least twice as effective in my experience.
I agree.
And that's why you go to the video section of this channel and you watch these video client interviews and you're like, holy crap, 2 sessions, he's almost completely fixed his stuttering. That's the Diego interview, or this guy quadrupled his business income, or this one guy these are all actual clients. Watch the testimonials. The Haresh one, he was an institutional trader. He burnt out because he couldn't handle the stress because of all the trauma in him, living in his mom's basement for 6 years and then just being an Uber driver. And we do sessions for him. Now he's back at institution trading, not burning out, managing 7-figure account.
Yep.
Just crazy results. That was like 3 sessions for him. He was a severe case. And he did some self-hypnosis too. But, and actually that one, the sessions were spaced pretty far apart, but
correct.
We did it. It worked. So you see these amazing results that a normal psychotherapist would never dream of achieving. They can't because their methods aren't capable of that,
They dream of achieving it, but they can't achieve it.
Yeah, because they're using crappy methodology. Well, I won't say crappy because they're useful. Their methods are useful, but they're wholly incomplete by themselves.
I agree.
Wholly incomplete. You got it. Coherence therapy may take somewhat longer compared to what we're doing, but coherence therapy can fix someone just as much as what we do.
Absolutely.
It might just take a little longer. We just kind of condense and accelerate it. But he's doing all the right stuff, and I know. I mean, they're getting massive healing. It just maybe not as concentrated.
The only thing that puts me off a little bit about coherence therapy, and Bruce said this, he says, occasionally we run into the trauma. So
I think they run into it all the time.
Well, they may not recognize it.
Maybe they just look at it differently. Yeah.
He said in the beginning, then all of a sudden something happens and we recognize it. So
yeah, I didn't even remember him saying that, but I must have missed that. Yeah. But I don't doubt you. I'm sure he said that. I missed it. That's good you picked that out, Tim. Okay. Moving on. Anything else?
No, not on that one.
Okay, cool. We're almost done here. We'll finish it out here.
We do the discovery work.
Oh, wow, Bruce. I'm just so aware of that it feels like we've been talking for 2 minutes and that we could talk another hour.
Easily.
So I really appreciate, but I think we may close this video here because, to keep it short, and then we'll do another one as well, another interview. In the next video, I'm going to read an example case where we do some of the pieces like the example you just gave, and then we'll come back together and have another interview as part 5 of the series, looking more at the science of what we've been talking about today.
Right.
Yeah, if you go to 447, you'll find
so
the occasional.
People stay tuned.
Say that again.
If you go to 447, you'll find the occasional statement.
Oh, okay. Well, let's play that real quick.
This is how he started refining it and making it better.
I'll go just a few seconds before. Here we go.
Yeah, it's fine.
Co-creator of Coherence Therapy. We were comparing notes early in our careers and found that very occasionally a client would have a remarkable breakthrough, a deep shift, a deeply felt shift. and long-standing major symptoms would just disappear, stop, and not come back. And boy, was that a joy! But it was very occasional back then, and mysterious. We didn't know why it happened, when it happened. But
so he's talking early in his career, they would actually very quickly heal the trauma, but it was rare for it to happen.
Noticing that it.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, cool. They got a lot better now.
Yeah.
But it was just occasional, just happened by accident. And they didn't know why.
Yeah, gotcha.
But I'm glad he figured out why, because it simply validates everything that we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So coherence therapy isn't the only therapy out there that's using like these cutting edge techniques. It is one we want to shed light on it. One of these days, I got to get an EMDR guy on here. I actually did a session for a high level EMDR guy who, you know, had a master's degree in psychology and then took almost a year-long program for EMDR. And he said, there's a lot of overlap, Ryan, with what you're doing and what we're doing. And that's just because all these cutting edge programs that get the real deep, big results that normal psychotherapy can't get, they are all using what neuroscience has discovered, and because that's how the brain works. And that's the most effective way to do it. So that was Bruce Ecker with Dr. Tori Olds. I'm going to watch that next video. We might cover that one next week that goes more into the science. But for anyone who wants to not just manage trauma, but just frickin' fix it, change your life. And it's not just getting to normal. If we're going in there and fixing this stuff, these false core beliefs, false schema, false core identity, all of that, we don't just get it to, okay, you're doing okay now. We put the best beliefs in to replace it, which means we are optimizing your subconscious mind. We're not getting you to normal or average. We're getting you to top level emotional health, where you are going to be succeeding in the way you want to succeed. It doesn't mean there's not ups and downs in life. That's life. But your mindset is going to drive you to feel better, happier, more confident, more comfortable, and get what you want in ways that you may not have even realized were possible.
Correct.
And did you ever think, 10, 15 years ago, you see your wife struggling in another business she wanted to launch and it fizzled out again. Did you ever, like 10 years ago, think, well, geez, there's a way where we can do one session for her and all that internal stuff I see in her, all that doubt and everything is gone, and then she's going to start a business and triple her income?
I didn't even have enough information to even know that that could happen.
Yeah, well, most people don't, because they don't know this stuff. Very few people do. So, any final comments from you, Tim?
Yeah, let me add this. This is not a competitive environment where we share practices, ideas, and methodologies with other types of therapies. We've got the Ryan Fowler SOS. In my mind, it stands at the top because I physically and literally have seen the results. I would put Coherence Therapy number 2, and they're going to get better and better at that. I'd call EMDR number 3 because, and only when you get an incredible EMDR specialist, not just any old joker who took a 2-week class and calls themselves an EMDR therapist, but somebody really who understands.
Really well-trained guy.
Yeah, core beliefs, schemas, core identities, memory reconsolidation, all that kind of stuff. It'll work, right? And then there's psychedelics, which I don't believe in because they're harmful to the body. Although they do have some result, they're not as focused. And then there's cognitive behavioral therapy with an element of this rewiring technology that we do. There are billions of customers, more than any one of us could ever get to in the next 100 years. So they're
you can take a quarter of the U.S.
Right,
that struggles with major depression or anxiety disorder or something.
Right, they're not competitive in the thought of that there's not enough business to go around. Like there's 12 mechanics in town and 7 cars, right? Some are going to go out of business because they're not going to have any customers. But all these different therapies people are going to run into, and I just hope they find a very good practitioner. In 1 or 2 years from now, I am developing now a curriculum that will train people in the Ryan Fowler subconscious optimization system, or whatever it's going to be called by the time we get there, so that we can now train other people to expand this, because we even asked ChatGPT, what would happen if nobody had any trauma, right? And it was a bit much longer sentence than that.
It's like it would save humanity. It was grok.
It was like world peace, no contention. People would be productive. Nobody would be depressed. Now, that's a long, long way to go. But that is what we're seeing for the future, maybe 100 years from now, because both of us will be dead by the time this really sinks in and really overcomes the pharma industry, who's making billions anyway. So
no, I want it mainstream by the time I die.
Probably got
30 years.
That would be cool.
I'm going for it.
Me
All
too.
right. So thank you, Tim. And for our audience watching, if you feel stuck, whether it's procrastination or, man, I can't get the relationship with a romantic partner that I want long-term. I don't have the income I want. I'm in scarcity mindset. Whatever you're struggling with, rewire your brain. I did it. And then my income doubled and tripled and quadrupled. And so that's with my old business, which I still do a tiny bit of. More in this now. So, and I never thought I could quadruple my income, but you rewire your brain, and it didn't happen right away, but over a few years it did. And then
even more than that, Ryan, let me interrupt you. Even more than that, you
start feeling better right away.
Yeah, you probably didn't have an idea that at your age now, you would be as awesome as you are, truly, that you were then, but just didn't know it.
Oh, I never knew I could get to this level of just self-belief, self-love, because every day I was feeling like crap every day for decades. Yeah, so you can do it. You don't need it.
Important.
Yeah, and for our audience, if you want to dive into these methods and start improving your own life, there's been a banner going on. There's our free school community. Sign up, join. There's a free basic self-hypnosis course, but it's a free one, and it can be very powerful. You can book a free 30-minute one-on-one consult with me. You can book a consult with Tim. Change your life, up level. Let's get you where you want to be. You can do it, because you really, truly do have more power than you know. That's our show. Thank you.